welcome to session 2 of the first series from the VIP Mentoring video log and podcast with Nathan Singleton and Elspeth Paisley. In these shows, I'm the interviewer and Nathan is your expert, and we're experimenting a bit with the format of the show, so do let us know your thoughts. We'd love to hear from you. So let us know what you do, and if you've got any questions that you'd like us to cover, do comment below or just get in touch with us. This is the inaugural series of the video blog from VIP Mentoring, and in this mini-series of 5 shows we're unpicking what it takes to be a good mentor of young people, whether you're a volunteer or a professional. Last show we concluded that there were 3 foundational values to mentoring young people, and these were real care, trust and teamwork. And today we're going to talk about some of the activities that can help to build those core foundational elements in your relationship with young people that you mentor. But before we get started, I just wanted to let you know that this series is available on YouTube at LifeLine Projects and podcast at the VIP Podcast with Nathan Singleton. If you're listening on the podcast, we'll put the link in the show notes below because I'm sure you won't remember it. And without any further ado, let's get started with this week's show. Nathan, you've been working with young people for around 20 years, so how did you get started? What motivated you to start?
I guess I felt privileged. I was involved in a youth club, and my parents had lots of friends around who had shown interest in me, who had been older than myself, a little bit younger than them. And I suppose they were kind of people that they looked out for and had an interest in, and they in turn did the same for me. So those 2 factors came to play, and when I was in the youth group approaching the older age of probably 14, 15, my friends started to leave to go to another youth group for a different age group, the older age group, and I didn't want to leave. And I suppose I felt a sense of, I don't think it was just loyalty, but I just wanted to stay and to continue to be involved. So I did, and after I've been around for a year or so, and there was no one else my age there, I guess the leaders started to think, well, we're not going to get rid of him, we have to give him something to do. And I was really eager to do things, so I started getting involved, helping however I could, doing things off my own back that I could do, coming alongside some of the other young people, talking to them, and so that's really how it started, and I just kept going. So I didn't stop going, I just kept going, and some degree became part of the furniture, but then I suppose as I matured within that, I had the opportunity to take on additional responsibility, and really enjoyed doing that, enjoyed developing relationships with the young people, providing a vision for them and an exciting environment. And I could see ways in which I felt we could do things differently. So after a good few years of that, the leaders of that particular youth group decided they wanted to do something different, and I was asked to take on the lead of that, which I was really excited to do because that gave me a little bit more scope to try some of the ideas that we'd experimented with. And so that was probably by the age of about 19 or 20, I was responsible for that particular group. I was always surprised that I was allowed to lead it. So I remember the first residential weekend that we took the young people on, turning with my co-leader and saying, I can't believe they're letting us do this. And probably didn't follow all health and safety protocols. I remember one night we had a complaint about the kids came from a neighbour of the residential centre that there were children running around in the graveyard making lots of noise. But it was because we were playing a wide game with them.
In a graveyard?
in a graveyard, yeah. One kid did fall over and bump his head on a gravestone. Yeah, we seemed to get through that. So it wasn't necessarily the most risk-averse approach, but it was certainly fun, and the young people enjoyed it, and I learned a lot. And I kind of, as I think about how do we develop leaders now, you become more and more aware, and I kind of think, would I give someone my age then the responsibility that I was given, and would I risk that with them? And it's easy to think as an organisation grows and you have reputation and risk to preserve, that you can't risk those things. And I suppose when I started doing it, it was in an organisation that didn't have a reputation to protect and was very much freer. But if I didn't have that opportunity, I don't know how I would have developed. So I'm always thinking about how do we give young people the opportunity to fail safely. And the truth was I was in a very safe environment with people that I could really draw upon, very interested in what I was doing, still benefiting from mentoring as I still do today, but even more so then, particularly on the job as it were. And so I'm always thinking about how do we give our young people that opportunity to fail safely, to let them learn from their mistakes, but in a way that's not going to cause them damage, not going to cause other young people damage. And I can't say I have the perfect solution to that, but it is something that we continually grapple with and think, where can we give young people more responsibility? And there'll be different things that we do, and then it's never as risky as it felt it was back then. And perhaps my leaders were more confident in the ability of myself and my co-worker than perhaps I was. And now when I give young people responsibility, I'm fairly confident they can do it, but there's a very clear safety net around them, so there's no real room for that degree of risk. And so I suppose that probably is how we let them fail safely. But keep on taking the risk and giving young people the chance, and within that there has to be mistakes made. But it's about learning from the mistakes that's really important.
So it sounds like you had a really good team around you and you really benefited from that kind of safety net you talked about. But what would you say to people who are starting out on their own perhaps now?
I went on a property training course with from the Rich Dad Poor Dad series. I don't know if you've heard of that. Yeah. Robert Kiyosaki, I think, is the guy. And he spoke about when you set up property and you become a property investor, you need to have your power team around you. Talks about you need an accountant, you need a solicitor, you need trades. And I suppose that's the same in all areas of life, that you need your power team around you. So if someone was setting up, I'd say, well, who's your power team? Where's your support network? And again, there's consistency in the message that we have to the young people being the message that we apply to our lives ourselves. So if I think it's important for a young person to be mentored, it's also important for me to be mentored. If I think it's important for a young person to be supported, it's also important for me to be supported. So if someone was setting up, I'd really encourage them to think about what your support networks are, who your co-worker is. That was really important for me. I had a co-worker that would challenge me and support me, and we'd work together. That can be really frustrating because it's someone else's opinion and they don't always agree. In fact, in the case of my co-worker, they felt we spent a lot of time arguing. But it's really important because that's the steel on steel that sharpens. Having the mentor around and sometimes the adjudicator was really important, so that person with a little bit more maturity and experience that you can go to and draw from. It's important that person is interested in you as an individual as they were in me. And I think the other benefit is we were working out of a supportive community. Now you can't, again, we were hugely blessed by having that opportunity, and not everyone does, but we recognised that we were in a community that wanted the work with young people to succeed and had many people around us that would get involved and volunteer. And I think at one point we had a team, probably 100 or something volunteers for a particular event that we ran. We were privileged.
You make that sound easy, but 100 volunteers, that's incredible.
It's quite a lot, isn't it? Yeah, so they weren't all volunteers that I was managing at all, but they were. So we ran a particular event week at one point in time, and so different people from the organisation headed up different areas and they each had teams of volunteers. But there was an organisation that was supporting what we were doing that were happy to row in with some of the ideas that myself and my co-worker, and then by that point the team around us had.
How did you persuade them?
The volunteers?
The other organisation who rowed in with you, because it sounds like you were doing some things that were quite sort of out there, a bit risky.
Yeah, yes, it felt risky at times. There was risk there. It was managed, I think. Sometimes it didn't feel very managed. How did we persuade people? I suppose it comes down to the vision of what we wanted to do. And so when we spoke about what we wanted to do, what we wanted to achieve, how we wanted to impact young people, people were keen to join. So that was one part. The other part almost is in contradiction to that. So whilst we had lots of people that were keen to join, we also had an opportunity where, I guess because we were growing so quickly or we had so many ideas, that we didn't have enough adults that could deliver on the ideas. So because we were keen on the ideas, we had the energy to make them happen, the young people were keen to deliver on them. So what happened is we were, I suppose the same way that I've been given opportunity, we were giving opportunity to those young people. So very quickly, in fact immediately from leading, I had peer leaders that were leading other groups of young people. And when we ran events, they were run by young people doing all the entertainment, the music and such.
Oh, so what kind of events did you run?
So we ran, I suppose, kind of like shows, using, back then multimedia wasn't as multi as it is now. So I remember when I convinced the organisation to buy a LCD projector.
Wow.
Yeah, and I remember running youth events before the projector. It makes me sound old, doesn't it? It's shocking now, people won't realise that. So we'd use drama, we'd use dance, we'd use music, live and recorded.
And they were shows for young people, by young people?
Yes, that was pretty much it. And partly because it was young people that had available. I think it didn't really matter what we did. What was important was that we were providing a place where young people were excited to be. And one of the organisation leaders said to me, a crowd draws a crowd, so that's what we want to do. We want to create a place where people want to be. And actually the same organisation was running an event last week, and I saw the same components. It didn't really matter about the quality of the production. What mattered is that there were young people that were involved, and in this case children, young people that were involved, and were excited to be involved. And they therefore brought their friends along, and their friends brought their parents along. And you have young people that have a purpose. And so that seedling about the purpose really became a key part of our approach, vision, identity and purpose, because it was about providing a purpose. Once you work with young people to develop a vision and identity, we wanted them to have some way to apply it. So that might have been about them driving around the parks with a megaphone shouting out to tell people to come to the particular gig that we were putting on. I had one guy that we painted blue all the time, head to toe.
How did people respond in the park?
They came. It was novel. And I think because there was young people that was excited about something, it worked. So we did lots of funky things because we had time. And that was the real resource that we had. I was at university at the time, so university wasn't very taxing, so I had lots of spare time, and we had lots of young people that had time. Rather than playing computer games, they'd rather come and practice a sketch or work out some songs or do whatever funky things. We had an alien theme to what we did, so hence the girls always painted blue as an alien. So it was just, what's the word? It was just
unusual.
Gimmicks. So it was really about using gimmicks, and the gimmicks kept the young people excited. They probably kept me and the leaders excited, and so we enjoyed doing it. It was fun, and that's what's really important. Is when we provide an area of purpose for young people, it's got to be something that's really fun. And working with a team was really important. I had to have people around me that bought the idea, that actually wanted to give young people an opportunity to do something new. Probably did come from the experience I was having and had about being given that opportunity. And so the volunteers joined because they thought, well, this is something we're doing, this is fun, it's exciting for the young people. They might have been parents of the young people or known the young people, or connected with the wider organisation.
And what happened to those young people then? So that sounds like it was quite a few years ago now. What did you see start to happen with the young people? You talked about, kind of making mistakes yourself and being given responsibility, and it sounds like you took those young people on that same kind of journey. What happened?
Yes. Well, a number of the young people I still work with today, they're not young people anymore. And it's interesting how when you go through that model of kind of beneficiary to peer leader to leader, the benefit for me is they become young people I support to friends of mine, as we then start working in team alongside each other. And so a number of young people now will be leaders alongside, and they would have developed in careers in different areas, or work for the organisation now as employees. Numbers of them we wouldn't have contact with still, but an awful lot of them we still have contact with and would talk with on a regular basis. And you see generations go through, and you see a little while ago I stepped out of the voluntary youth club that I was involved in, but a number of the young people that I had seen grow up for that continued with that, and then I was able to support them in that next tier of things.
It's interesting because it sounds like what you're talking not about a short, sharp intervention in a young person's life, but you're talking about really building long-term relationships, and that's the thing that seems to be to have the impact.
Yeah, I think that's where it gets really challenging using funding, because funding makes everything short-term, and we use a plethora of models. We use funded models and unfunded models. But in all of those, I like to see how can we keep the journey with the young person. So a number of years ago, we had a young person who would work with, following our support. She'd moved from being a rather troubled young person who would walk out of school following an argument and truant and getting involved with the wrong crowd, to being awarded a MBE. And I thought, well, that's brilliant. I mean, it was
that's
brilliant.
Amazing.
Yeah, she did really well. But a little while after, I thought, well, where's the other young people like this? And as I analysed that, I thought, we worked with that young person for 7 years. That was a 7-year journey, and the journey continues. It doesn't stop. And so oftentimes funding works with very short periods. Lots of funding we've had is for 2 school terms. Well, you're not going to see 7 years worth of development in 2 school terms. So one part was about getting realistic about what we're going to see on the journey. So we thought about that young person and where were they 2 terms on in our journey with them. And then being realistic about what change we're going to see within that time. But then also trying to see how can we put funding together and how can we use our volunteer base to ensure that we have a long-term relationship with young people. Because really we don't just want to run youth activities, we want to see young people develop to be leaders of society. That's what, as an organisation, we believe in. But it's a difficult, it takes time.
So if we were to summarise what we've talked about today, given your sort of 20 years of experience that you're passing on just in that short time today, what would be the key pointers to people?
I think the start point is the end point, knowing what you want to achieve at the end of it. For us, that was about growing leaders, not just entertaining young people, but seeing young people develop to a point where they can have an impact on their society and community. So that was the number one objective. The way we did that was through giving them responsibility, giving them an environment where they can fail safely, and recognising that we're with them for the long term, not the short term. So where funding may be short term, we want to walk with young people for that 7-year plus duration. If I bring that back to myself, I've had people walking along me for many years, and that's what I want to replicate to other young people.
Thank you, Nathan. That's been fascinating. I think we might return to some of those themes on later on in the mini series.
Thank you.